Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at Pokemon investing modern versus vintage. And for the purpose of today's video, I really want to focus on sealed. So not the cards that you can pull, but I really want to focus on the sealed product. So I thought we'd break it down in a couple of ways. First of all, I wanted to decipher exactly the difference between modern and vintage. Then I thought we'd have a look at the pros and cons for investing in vintage and the pros and cons for investing in modern, and then come to hopefully some sort of conclusion about which path might be best for you. So please keep watching to the end. Drop some feedback down below. Give me your thoughts. Happy to have a discussion down in the comments section. I'll always reply to people, so please drop some thoughts in. Anyway, let's jump right in. Difference between vintage and modern. Those of you who have been around in the hobby for a while, like myself, pushing towards the mid-30s, we've been there through it all. So I remember when I was 10 years old, jumping in, and 11 years old, picking up some first edition base set packs for $4.95. So clearly that's vintage. Where does vintage stop? Some of the purists will say, well, Wizards of the Coast era is the true vintage block. And I actually tend to like to agree with that point. Other people will go, well, E-Series right through to the end, Crystal Guardians all the way through is also vintage. Other people will say Heart Gold, Soul Silver is now vintage, or Diamond and Pearl is now vintage, and even Black and White era is pushing vintage. I actually think you could probably split it into four. For the purpose of this video, though, I'm going to call modern Sword and Shield onwards. I think that's a pretty fair statement. Even Sun and Moon it's hard to say that's real modern. I mean, look at the price of Team Up. That thing's gone berserk. Look at the price of Unbroken Bonds, Cosmic Eclipse, Unified Minds, Celestial Storm, Shining Legends, Elite Trainer Box. They've all gone bonkers. I don't even think you could class that as true modern now. So the purpose of this video, modern is Sword and Shield onwards. I think you can talk vintage modern, which is probably Black and White, XY, and perhaps even some Sun and Moon, but that's almost a grey area now. Then I'd say pushing towards vintage is the EX era, Diamond and Pearl, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Platinum series, and then obviously true vintage, I think for the purists, is that Wizards of the Coast era. But anyway, let's jump into vintage, modern, pros, cons. So we'll start off with vintage. Some pros, and I'll list them up on the screen here so they all come up in a nice table. Obviously, the main one is low supply. There is low supply on vintage. Even sets that were printed into oblivion, like base set, there's low supply on that. Geez, good luck finding a first edition base set box. How often do they come up for sale? Never. You've got to be in the know. You've got to be in the know with the right people to even find one of those. Even a EX Team Rocket Returns booster box. How often does one of those come up for sale? So to go with low supply, they're also super rare, so hard to find. Then I suppose a third pro is you're gonna have some seriously expensive chase cards, like first edition Charizard, of course. There's some seriously expensive Gold Star cards throughout the EX series, like the Gold Star Rayquaza that recently sold for huge amounts of money. So that's another pro. If you've got that box, you could have a piece of gold sitting inside there that is worth some serious money. Another thing is they're proven. There's been countless sales of base set booster boxes at $20,000, $15,000 US. There's been countless sales of first edition fossil booster boxes for $10,000 US. Like it's proven across time. People like it. It's good to have on display. There's rare chase cards you could pull from it. So it is a proven product. Another pro is you've got low pop on pulls. So especially some of the, think of maybe some of the crystal hollows from the E-Series. you've got some incredibly low pop cards. Think of some of the Neo first edition sets, like that Slow King, for argument's sake, that's really hard to grade as a 10. Like, you've got some seriously low population cards that you could pull from there. And I suppose the biggest pro is there's that nostalgia. It's desirable, collectible. If you've got one, it gives you that feeling like, oh, there's not too many other people on this planet that have what I have. However, although there's all those pros, there are also some cons. So the biggest one, it is damn expensive. I mean, I don't, who has 80,000 Australian dollars, which is likely what you're going to have to pay to get an EX Team Rocket Returns booster box? Don't have it. Can't afford it. I'd rather spend that money on more important things like mortgage, bills, life. So the biggest con of vintage is it's expensive. And even if you want to get yourself a booster pack of EX Crystal Guardians, what's that going to set you back? $900, $800? Like, that's damn expensive, where you could pull a non-holo and you could pull $10 worth of cards out of the set. So that's one serious con, expensive. Second serious con is they're not always up for sale. Sometimes it's damn hard to find. Even if you've got the spare funds, you might have won lottery. You might have had a redundancy from work and got paid out $500,000 and you want to treat yourself to a couple of collectibles. They're not always going to be for sale. Third con, there is that small chance, well, maybe not even small, the chance of fraud. There's fake boxes out there. There could be people that don't send them when it comes time to sell them. Someone could try and fraud you on the back end and say it didn't return, or you've sent out a fake box. So it's risky doing purchases and sales on really expensive items. So I guess that leads to the final point, is you've got that higher level of risk on transactions with vintage products. Moving on to modern, some pros. I suppose the biggest one, and if we sort of relate back to the con from vintage being expensive, one of the best pros from modern is it's a pretty cheap entry point. Like, you can buy yourself a booster box for 180 Australian dollars. It's not too bad. You can have nice display pieces. You could buy 6 booster boxes or 100 booster boxes of modern for the same price you can get one vintage booster box for. So entry point is good. I suppose another serious pro of modern is it's pretty damn unlikely to dip unless there's perhaps a reprint, which I'll get to that in the cons section of modern. But I mean, go buy yourself 4 booster boxes or a case of booster boxes at launch for 175 Australian dollars per box. Geez, it's low risk. Like, is it ever going to dip below 175? Unlikely. You could sit on it for 2 years and it not dip, and then it slowly starts to rise. So my point is, it's low risk. The other thing I think Sword and Shield onwards, if we're talking about ultra modern, is there's some seriously great artwork. Like, kudos to the illustrators, kudos to Pokemon with the thoughts and ideas, these alt arts, these special illustration rares that are coming out in Scarlet and Violet. There is some seriously neat artwork. It's taking the Pokemon trading card game to places it's never been before. So I think that's exciting, and it's a huge pro for modern investing. Next one, I think it's seen, and I read a stat somewhere that the new Scarlet and Violet game was the highest sold Pokemon game in history. So there's obviously huge demand and huge popularity. So if you think back to base set, where there was huge demand, huge popularity, is there some sort of correlation there between obviously huge demand, huge popularity, and maybe what the future might bring for investing? Quite possibly. Some cons though, let's jump into some cons. Oh, and one last thing that ties in with the huge popularity is that's going to hopefully lead to a pretty big customer base in the future. So when the kids that are maybe 11, 12, 13 years old, opening a heap of booster packs, having fun with their mates, maybe they then get to 23 and have some disposable income and they want to go splash out and buy themselves a booster box again. And yeah, it's going to cost them $1,200, but who cares, because that's their nostalgia. So it's going to lead, that huge popularity should lead to, down the track, a huge population base. So that's another pro for modern. I think that, pretty much ticks off all the all the pros for modern. Some cons though. I don't even know. I don't even know if there's too many, but I'll talk through a few. It's not proven. Sword and Shield isn't yet proven. And this leads me to my next point, there's so many graded cards. So we're in this place it hasn't seen before. Base set, fossil set, Neo, like Jungle, Neo, EX, Expedition, all those, even black and white, not many graded cards. Now there's just this huge abundance of graded cards. So what's that going to mean for the future of the sealed product? Is that a con? Yeah, quite possibly. Oh, yes. Yeah, it should be. Next point though, next con is there's a lot stored. Look, I mean, look at me, and I'm not the only person. There's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these new sort of Pokemon investors on the scene that are thinking, Pokemon's going to go to the moon. So they've bought cases, stashed it away. I did a video on Rudy from Alpha Investments. $3 million of Sword and Shield Pokemon cases he stashed away to show how bullish he is on Sword and Shield. So, there's people that are storing this away. So are we going to have a greater amount of supply in the future than what we've ever had of the sealed product? And I suppose my final point is, which you never know, it's never too late. Even if it does go out of rotation, sometimes it creeps back in. It could be reprinted. Like, there could have been some people who've gone, oh, I lost Origin. I missed out on it at 175 a box because I didn't quite have the money. I'll put it towards something else. But all of a sudden might have bought in Australian dollars. I'm talking at 220 or 230 Australian dollars, thinking, well, it's done for. Scarlet and Violet's out, new silver borders. It's not getting reprinted. This is still a good buy at $230. And then all of a sudden, reprint happens and it's back down to 190 or 200. So there is the chance still on Ultra Modern of reprints. So with all that in mind, pros and cons for vintage and modern, what should you invest in? Well, that's the $1 million question. So an answer. If someone had a knife to my back and said, what's your personal opinion, Michael? I would say modern. And I'll tell you why. I don't have enough spare money to buy ultra vintage. I'm not a real successful Pokemon YouTuber. I don't have heaps of funds from getting monetized and being able to buy vintage booster boxes and show them off and rip them and open them and sell off the packs. And I'm not at that level, don't have that funds. I'm like everyone else, general Joe Blow. I've got bills to pay. I've got people to look after. So I can't do that. Whereas I think modern for me, that's why I like modern. I think it's low risk. It's low entry point. You don't have to give away tens of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars. You can buy elite trainer boxes for $70 Australian. You can buy booster boxes for $180 Australian. It's a really nice entry point. It gives you heaps of good display pieces. It's good fun. You can track them in things like the collector app to see how you're going. Personally, I'm more bullish on modern. I think it's got great room for growth, particularly the Sword and Shield era with those amazing old arts and those final sets with trainer galleries. I think they're really good choices. However, vintage is proven. I also struggle to see now, after, I suppose, that bubble, so to speak, but I struggle to see vintage ever returning back to a position where a base set booster box is $5,000. Like, that's just not going to happen. Supply is dwindling. They're getting rarer. They're getting scarcer, and in fact, extremely scarce in some circumstances, even compared to the last 3 or 4 years. So you could argue they're the safe bet. But modern, I think, offers, like I said, that nice entry point into the hobby. Either way, I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you can go wrong in sealed Pokemon investing. So please let me know your comments below. Please let me know your thoughts. Let's have a discussion. Open up the channel. Please let me know. Thanks again.